changed my mind about this. I actually just wanted to play with it one more time. All right, so this is something that I think would be a good thing for you to take notes on. And we'll also have Amber take some notes, like meeting notes. Yes, okay, thanks.
Hi Becca. Hey Becca. Hey, sorry, Melody's starting to talk, and so we're gonna.
Awesome.
There you are. Okay, good. We're good. Becca, can you hear us?
I can.
Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. All right, very good.
Awesome. Okay.
Sorry, I had something to walk into my classroom like right when I was signing up. Apologize.
Oh,
so, one of the things that I want to talk about today is excellence and why excellence matters and what it looks like. This is something that DZ talks about a lot and as like an organization value, but it's also a department value. And so what I want to I haven't drawn this out anywhere else, so my artist skills are very lacking. So it won't be great, but I think it'll communicate the point and why this matters, because this should inform everything that we do. So the first point is excellence is our value, not our idol. We don't worship excellence. Like we don't get in like excellence is the end all be all. Like excellence is that's all that we're thinking about. It's a value, it's not an idol. So here's how I want you to think about it, okay? This is, again, I'm apologizing in advance. I'm not a good artist. This is a throne, okay?
Oh.
Yes. So it's not a square H. You know, I know that was like, ooh, okay. Excellence isn't on the throne. Jesus is on the throne, okay? That's Jesus. And because Jesus is on the throne, everything that we do should be done with excellence. Okay? That's what it looks like. So it's not like we're serving excellence. We're serving Jesus, and he's worthy of excellence. Okay? And here's how excellence plays out. If you've never seen this before with DZ, it's something that he talks about a lot, but we'll talk about it right now. Excellence has like 4 characteristics to it within our organization. My ex got messed up. Hold on. I like this and I hate it. It's like a love-hate relationship. Okay? So here are the 4 facets of excellence as he describes them, and I think that it works perfect for worship and how our department is structured. Okay? So you have vision, strategy, planning, and execution. It's these 4 things. These are the 4 facets of excellence, okay? We achieve excellence when we have all 4 of these things. So I'm going to be candid and say that for a majority of years in Sandals Church, we didn't have a worship vision. There was no vision for worship that I was ever, from the time I came, maybe it was before, it was just, we're going to sing songs on the weekend and do a good job with it. There wasn't like a vision that we were like, that was informing the rest of this. But now we have a vision, right? To create a dynamic worship experience across all of the campuses of Sandals Church. And now when you have a great vision, if you don't have a strategy for accomplishing the vision doesn't even matter. But we're putting strategy to the vision. So this is standardizing auditions. This is standardized scheduling, which Matt and Delana have been working on, are going to present to us next week, which is awesome. This is building and caring for your campus worship teams. This is strategic and intentional set planning. This is team gatherings. Like all of these things are the strategy for the vision. We're like trying to care for our volunteers. We're trying to inform our volunteers. We're trying to equip you guys to do what you need to do as far as leading your campus as well, or leading across the campuses really well. So our vision is what we have that goes along with our strategy. And this is where we put a ton of time in the past few months, because it wasn't here. We didn't have a vision and we didn't have a strategy. And when you don't have strategy, let me tell you what this turns into, because I've been in part of organizations. Without vision, without strategy, you start having workarounds and silos. I don't know that some of you didn't like one another in the fall, but it was a little frosty at times. Like there was just, you were doing your thing and I didn't know what you do, but I do my thing, and you haven't been really empowered to tell me what I'm allowed to do. And without strategy, people go to workarounds and silos. So here's the process. I don't like the process. The process is inefficient. This doesn't make sense to me. Therefore, I'm going to find another way to get it done. That creates a ton of frustration, which is why it matters. But if you have a vision and then you create strategy to accomplish your vision, then this is the bulk of where. Sorry, I'm going to turn this a little bit if I can. Okay. This is the bulk of what you guys do. You plan your teams, you run your rehearsals, you coordinate details with your band leaders. Planning is a huge part of the weekend. And then you're responsible to execute it. Okay? But this is where we need to spend a few minutes, because most of the people in this room can do this in their sleep. If Dan Zimbardi put his head out the door and I said, hey, we're going to have an impromptu worship service on the deck in 10 minutes. Can you lead some songs and lead your prayer time? Without putting very much thought into that, just getting 3 songs, all right, Eddie, come on, grab your guitar. We would go out there and we would execute that, and it would be good, it would be fine. Because you're able musicians, because you can sing, because you can play, because you can pray, because all of this, we can do execution most of the time in our sleep. So where we have to challenge ourselves is we shouldn't be executing just because we can. Our execution shouldn't look like or feel like, well, I can play and I can sing, so I can kind of hear, we'll make it work. All of these things should be informing your execution. So, since the bulk of what you guys do sits in here, I want to spend time talking about this piece right there. What does your planning look like? And for all intents and purposes, what does your preparation look like? Because your preparation determines the effectiveness of your execution. So, if you can execute in your sleep and do a B job, you should be doing a planning job that takes that to an A job. If I said, hey, I'm gonna set up some cooking equipment over here on the table, and Eddie can whip up crepes, I can't whip up crepes. So I'm gonna have to do a lot more of this to execute that well, but Eddie's not going to have to. He's just gonna have to walk over there and we'll all get to pick our toppings and we'll be a crepe happy family. It'll be awesome. If for me to do it, I'm gonna have to get a recipe, I'm gonna have to measure out the quantities, I'm gonna have to make sure, because it's not easy for me. So here's where this matters to our team. For some of us, we can execute without a lot of thinking and a lot of prep. Others of us, we'll die without that prep. We'll show up Thursday night and have diarrhea because we didn't prep, we don't know the set, we didn't look at the verses and all that stuff. But the pressure, the expectation is on all of us that our execution should be dynamic. And it all is centered on what our planning and our preparation looks like. So just to recap, because my drawing skills are lacking.
I think it's good.
Thank you very much. Excellence is our value, not our idol. We are not worshiping excellence. We aren't. I had a conversation this past week, and I want to be careful because I want to honor confidentiality. But I had a really in-depth conversation with a campus pastor when we were in Nashville. Very open and honest and transparent conversation. Very good for me to hear, because that perspective from the campuses is so important for the network, which is why we want to strengthen network campus collaboration and connection all the time. But here was the point of view that was shared with me, that campuses are working hard every week to execute services, right? A lot of vision and strategies coming from the network, and they're down here, they've got the volunteers, it's their campus, they need to be ready to execute what happens. The perspective was network people come in to the campus, they identify everything that's wrong. Here's how you could have done it better. Why didn't you do that? Why does this sound like this? Da 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 da. And then they're out. So they kind of come in and go blah, and then they peace out, which is deflating, which is disheartening, which is discouraging, which makes campus pastors and their teams feel like, okay, like it was really good last service, but you weren't here. So the reason why this matters is because what we're doing, network level worship, we're planning, we're set planning, we're all this, is filtered down, but really how it's being executed at the weekends is what matters. If we plan a set that no one's singing, who cares? Who cares if it was a great set? If we plan a great set, but, so-and-so at a campus didn't have a team to pull it off, what does it matter? Like, it really, these all have to be working together all the time. And what my job is, my primary job as the network leader, is to make sure you have what you need and you know what you need to know to do these things really well. So when Krista says, hey, we weren't set up well for rehearsal at San Bernardino for Easter because this, and this, my responsibility to Krista is to make sure production knows this is what Krista didn't have to lead her rehearsal well, and it really matters to me that Krista can lead her rehearsal well, so I'm sharing it with the other departments. Hey, here's what matters, right? Hey, the reason why I said to Matt and Delon, I want us to standardize a scheduling process because we need to have something that we can hand a new worship leader. Here's how we schedule our teams, and here's a process. And if you follow this process, things will happen in a way that will be less confusing and less irritating and less annoying, hopefully, right? I think it's great, and I'm dumb, so I understood it, so I think it'll be great for you guys. Why are we standardizing auditions across the campuses? Because I want your campus teams to be awesome. I don't just want Hunter Parks to be awesome and everybody else kind of scrape across the bottom for the crumbs. I want it to be dynamic at Woodcrest and at Palm and at San Bernardino. So I'm sitting over here going, what do you need from here and here to make this as well as it can be? Because excellence really matters, and excellence matters because Jesus is on the throne, and everything that we say, do, and think, Colossians says, should be worthy of who he is and what he's done. So this is a challenge for you, because what I want you to look at and think about right now is, what does this currently look like for you? This right here. This is getting messy. I'm going to have to redo it in a second. What does this look like for you? Look at what you're currently doing. Like, examine. Well, here's what I'm doing currently. Here's how I can be doing what I'm doing currently better. I could be spending more time fill in the blank. So this is another way for you to examine your strengths and your weaknesses. Some of our worship leaders, their strength is connecting with their team. Like, they love it. That fills them. They love to sit down and have conversations. They love to coffee at 10 or whatever, Hunter Park. That's an easy thing for them. For some of you guys, you may want to just be detaching all weekend because you're peopled out. So what needs to change or grow or get better here with you? For some of you guys, you can't wait to get into the set. Like, you can't wait to listen to it, and you're re-listening to it, and you're practicing all your transitions, and you're doing all that. For some of you, it's like, I don't really like these songs that much. This isn't my jam, da-da-da. So what does that need to look like for you? It needs to be, I'm not going to come in and go, I'm not the teacher going, okay, Eddie, what I want you to do, okay, I want you guys to do that for yourselves, but the reason it matters is because in the end of the day, this is what's on display for everybody to see and hear and experience. Right here. This is all behind the scenes stuff. This is the stuff that is out there in front. And the last thing I ever want you to feel when I show up at your campus or when Christina shows up is, like, I go up to Delon at Easter, he's like, you're here? And I was like, Delon, he's like, I mean, you're here? And she tried to, like, change, like, the tenor. Because I'm not going to be that person that comes up to you and goes, Delon, like, here's everything that's wrong. If I ever have constructive feedback to give, and if I ever don't do this, please say it to me, I'm not going to, that's not what I'm leading with. And if it's like a minor, like, make this tweak between services, then I'm going to fold that into the conversation. I'm there really to celebrate you and to celebrate your teams. Like, Easter for me was just a celebration to get across the 4 of our campuses and just worship and celebrate and be led in worship by you guys. I was just there to be, this is awesome, right? This is great. Are there things that we can do better? Always, because we're not perfect. So we should live our lives in a pattern of how can I grow, how can I get better? And we shouldn't be turned off by those conversations because I'm your biggest champion. I'm your biggest advocate. If something is going wrong for you across this organization, I'm going to be the first person to try to go make that right for you. Like, if you're having like this with your campus pastor, I'm going to be the person that goes in and says, hey, I want to fix this for you, because that's not what I want for you. So we're there to celebrate. We're also there to go, hey, let's make some adjustments. Hey, here's what didn't work. Hey, I was listening. She's really, really, really pitchy. Like pitchy to the point of I can't sing along. Let's think about bringing in another melody voice to kind of, balance it out a little bit. And that's what we're there to do. And you know what? If you're worshiping at another campus, I want our team to be such that if Morgan's worshiping at Palm, because she has a mysterious weekend off, and she hears something that she knows, man, if Danielle was out here hearing that, she would want to know that there's a collaboration there. There's a communication piece where Morgan just go, hey, I was listening, and not Danielle's like, don't come to my campus and tell me what to do. Like, I don't want that at all. Like, that's toxic. That's not who we are. That's dysfunctional. That's not healthy. But what I really want you guys to focus in on is how is what you're doing currently as a worship leader, network worship leader, campus worship leader, how is what I'm doing setting me up to execute with excellence? What do I need to adjust? What do I need to make notes on? What do I need to think through? What do I need to change? What do I need to, I need to look at my calendar, my week, and go, I probably need to readjust some things so that I have more time to connect with my team, or I have more time to play through the set. Whatever that is, I want you to take this week to just kind of like hone in on maybe one or two things and make those adjustments this week and see how it affects your planning and your execution. Because the fact that you're sitting in this room means you are capable of execution. Like you have what it takes. It's not like you're lacking the basic things that you need to be an effective worship leader. You all have the bones, right? You have it. What we have to constantly be reevaluating is how we're setting ourselves and our teams up for success, up for excellence. And as we continue to grow as a department and we add things or we change things, we always have to be thinking about scale and scalability, because 6 months from now, it's not just going to be Tim that's in the room as the newest worship leader. It's going to be Menifee. It's going to be eventually Fresno. It's going to, like, those are just going to keep coming. So I hope that you don't look at things that we're doing and go, here's another thing. Here's another. Like, we want to try to simplify so that you feel set up for success. We want you to have the answers. We want you to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. We want to come alongside and support you and encourage you so that you feel really good about what you're doing and how you're doing it. For campus worship leaders, I'm going to kind of put an addendum onto this. We talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. Your network worship leaders, think of them like substitute teachers coming into your classroom. Okay, so Becca was on the Nashville trip last week, which I'm assuming means you had a substitute, right? Yes. So that's Becca's classroom. It's her students. She knows the tone. She sets the tone. It's her space. She's super comfortable there. When that substitute teacher comes into Becca's space and Becca's atmosphere and environment, it's Becca's responsibility to give that substitute teacher everything that she needs to be set up for success. So what that means for campus worship leaders on our end is, I want you to be double checking the team that your network worship leader has. And if you see a major hole, it's on you to help them try to fix that. You can't just go, well, I'm trying, and no, like, work overtime to give them what they need. If it's a thin vocal team and you know, man, that's going to be a tough set for you to do by yourself vocally, and your vocal team's really thin, I need to do some work before I take off to make sure you have what you need. That is the role of the campus worship leader. Because listen, if things go south with that network worship leader, they're not coming. They're not starting with me. The campus pastor, I'm redirecting him to you. I'm going to say, check in with him and find out what did it, like, this is their classroom. This is their team. This is their responsibility. And I want you guys to be able to take off and have like moments of rest, but we also have to hand people everything that they need to do the job really well at your campuses. Okay, you need to go. I am setting you up for as much of success as I possibly can. Like if you were now listen, you can't do if you're in France and their bass player is throwing up Sunday morning. I'm not going to beg you. There's nothing you can do about that, right? But as it's within you, inside of your power and your ability, you're checking in and double checking in and rechecking in to make sure that as you step off and they step in, man, you've handed them a really great team. You've handed them all the specifics that they need to know, and they feel ready to go and they feel ready to be successful. Okay, that's part of the planning preparation stage from campus worship leaders to network worship leaders. Now, for network worship leaders, what that means for you is this should be a retroactive thing. You need to be super proactive in looking at your team, looking at what holes there are. If you don't know any of the vocalists on the team that you've been scheduled with, you need to be asking questions. You need to say, is she a lead? If that note's not made for you, you're doing the same thing back to the campus worship leader. Hey, it's just me and this one other girl. Is she a lead? Do I need to lead all the songs? Can she do harmony? If that hasn't been communicated, then you're looking at your set and you're looking at your teams and you're asking those questions. You're getting as much info from them as you can. So I don't want you just kind of like, well, they're going to have it all set up and I'm just going to kind of waltz in and go, follow me, guys. Like, it's not that kind of a handoff. It's you being super proactive. It's the campus worship leader being super proactive. With both people doing that, I feel really good about how the planning and execution is going to go for the weekend. Okay? Make sense? Questions, comments? I disagree or I agree?
I agree.
Thank you, Delon. Thank you, Delon, for agreeing.
I concur.
Delon, there's a prize for you in there somewhere.
Take one of these.
Yeah, she only knows.
I actually have a,
Yes.
I don't know what it is, it's just a question.
Amusing?
Whatever.
You're allowed to mute, Krista.
I think that my biggest challenge has been, obviously with San Bernardino, that there is no campus worship leader there, but
Yes.
somehow I feel like I've kind of attached myself to that campus in a way, you
Yeah.
know?
Thank
Even
you,
though
by
I'm even though I'm not the campus worship leader, so seeing things that are like need to be, it's like I feel like I'm just naturally trying to take that responsibility. So like the thing with the equipment, and that's just because there's nobody there,
Right.
to do it. So where there's a campus without a worship leader yet, like we might have this experience as we add.
Yep, we will.
You know, where it'll be just like network people coming in all the time, like to be thinking about, I don't even know what I'm even
I think
suggesting.
over communication is what's important there. So
Yeah.
your weekend worship eval from San Bernardino was super informative, which was helpful to me because I fill out something for Isaiah every month for production, and I took all of that data from you and I sent it over to Isaiah.
Yeah.
Like, here's what needs work for the San Bernardino production team based on what Chris is telling me. And that's why those weekend worship evals are so important and so good, because Montclair's going to get a run through, because Matt's the third worship leader who's brought up that they need one. I've suggested it, but now I'm going to up the suggestion.
Penny and I talked with Brett as
Good.
well afterwards.
Okay, great. Now I can just confirm what's already been discussed, that's necessary, because otherwise excellence is what will suffer without that, as we've now learned several weeks in a row. But because of those weekend worship evals, I'm having conversations with Brett. We're talking through different things. You guys are making observations about, here's what the Rogo student can handle, here's what they couldn't. Here's how much leeway, here's how much of an on-ramp I gave them and they were ready, versus the time I did give them an on-ramp and it kind of tanked. That's why these things are really helpful and really important. So yeah, for sure. Network worship leaders, when you go to a campus, I want you to be observant about what's going on there, because if you didn't feel set up for success, the network worship leader coming in behind you isn't going to feel set up for success either. And in the same way that we don't want to frustrate our volunteers, I don't want there to ever be a situation where we have a network worship leader who gets their assignment and they go, oh my gosh, I hate going to that campus because it's never, like, and probably no one would voice that, right? I don't even want it to be felt. I don't want them to go, every time I leave there, my team sucks. Like, I never have You know, that's a deflating energy to go into a weekend where you're supposed to be the one who's bringing energy and excitement and enthusiasm. Okay, so that's why this matters. So again, excellence is not our idol. We're not worshiping excellence. It's our value because we worship Jesus, and it's these 4 facets that go together to make excellence happen. So as we've created a vision and we continue to do things for strategy that kind of helps bring our vision to life, the planning and the execution piece are really, really important. I mean, that's where the weekend lives. And listen, here's the reality of this role. A lot of people in the organization got on the other side of Easter like, oh, we made it. We kept on trucking. Like, worship had to happen, you know, like discipleship had to, because baptisms had to happen. Bless their hearts, those campus pastors were in Nashville all week, and then they were up to preach. I was like, I'm not trying to be your mother, but I'm looking at y'all on the plane. Some of y'all are watching movies. You might need to be in your sermon notes. I'm not trying to be the Holy Spirit, but I just know, like, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so I want you to know that I recognize that I'm grateful for that, and that in all of this, and I'll put this over here, this is your second mandate, is what does this look like for you? I don't know what that looks like for me right now, honestly. Because this is hard. This is hard to do when the rest of the world is living for the weekend, and the weekends when we're like on. That's when we're executing. So some of you need to reevaluate, what does my rhythm of rest look like? Where in the week am I pulling back? Am I being still? Am I being quiet? Am I making sure that I've got all my work done, but I'm also just kind of having respites for myself? By the way, these 2 things are not at odds with each other. They're not against each other. They're not, it's like, well, I had to prep, so I couldn't rest. Well, I needed to rest, so I didn't prep. No. Healthy is, I can prep and I can rest. And I don't know what your stage in your season of life is. I know what mine is, so I know that this is very challenging for me right now. But you know what? We figure out what we care about. And so I'm going to have to figure this out for me. So sometimes it means I had to say no to that. Sometimes it means, yeah, everyone's going to this fun thing, but that's my only 3 hours of the week to be at home and to be still. So I have to say no. Sometimes it means getting over there with my husband going, I got to step away for a second. You're in your own season of life, single, married, kids, no kids, whatever that is. These 2 things should be working together, not against each other. And it's on you to figure it out. It's on you to go, okay, what does this need to look like for me? If you come off of a weekend and you feel like you were ill prepared, you need to evaluate, how can I do that better for the next week? If you go into a weekend where you're like, I am consistently not rested, you need to reevaluate and make a readjustment for the week ahead. Not just keep doing what you're doing. Okay? So this is important because this is how you guys are going to be set up for success on the weekends. And every weekend is going to have its set of challenges, right? Volunteers, production issues, all that kind of stuff. Every weekend's going to have its own set of challenges. But if you have nailed this down, I loved reading Daniel Gottlieb's weekend evaluation, because what he said was, I prepared so much that I felt really confident even though I was nervous. That's a win. When you don't prepare and you feel nervous, everyone knows. Everyone's like, are they okay? She doesn't look well. Like, okay? But confident, even though I was nervous because I'm prepared, this will take away most of your angst. This will take away most of your angst. Because if he's leading the song and he sounds terrible, it's okay because you know the song. If your band's playing the song and man, that keys player, she cannot hold it down, that's okay. You can strip it back to an acoustic and pull the keys out. Your preparation will be the thing that makes all of the difference. It'll make all the difference. Okay? Good? Good? Awesome, awesome. Any other questions or musings or thoughts? Okay. Really quickly, we're gonna go through something. I don't want to sit with my back to you, so I'm gonna sit here. Sorry, Taylor.
Should we move?
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. Yeah, you
Where will
can
you
sign us
go?
though. take a few minutes and talk about is, I loved your Easter weekend evals. I'm really grateful for you guys doing those every week. We are gonna have a special shout out to Morgan, because Morgan gets hers in the first every single week.
When you have the earliest service, I guess that makes it.
You're highlighting that right
I know Morgan.
Your
but
services are done at 11.
And Morgan had brunch by 11 a.m.
Casually filling out that eval.
Becca-
Some of
Becca
them
has 10 more
still
minutes.
grinding over the
Just so we know.
Thank you, Becca.
Ransom note.
Yeah,
She's
seriously.
got 10 more minutes.
Yes.
They said send the money to this address.
But let's talk through, and if you could, like, again, there's a lot of us, so keep it brief. I just want to really, and you might even just go back to your weekend worship eval too. Just highlight one thing that you're celebrating from Easter at your campus. Like, what's like this, her, him, that, like, what was your, this was a win.
Just writing preparation train, like that was something we all talked about. The team was so prepared and like over prepared that that Thursday went well, and then it all only got better from Thursday to Sunday, and everyone like noticed that. And then there was just an ease about the morning, which usually Easter's like everything's falling apart, like there's fires everywhere. Like it's kind of sometimes what it feels like. At least it did last year. So there was that, even though there was things that didn't go right or whatever, but because the team was prepped,
Yeah.
there was like it's okay, it'll be fine.
Yep.
And it also created better team dynamics with one another off the platform. We weren't frustrated at each other
Yes.
for not knowing stuff.
Huge. It was awesome. Your team sounded great, by the way. It was there. Joshua Baker rocked that Spanish.
See?
You guys all rocked the Spanish. Can I just tell you?
Yes.
The feedback from the campus pastors were, because when I told people we're doing across every campus, they were like, your worship leader speaks Spanish? I'm like, no, they learned it. I'm like, we're not going to be those white people that destroy the Spanish language, or black people. We're all going to learn Spanish. And you guys really sounded great. Like, it sounded really, really good. So thank you for, again, prepping and doing that, because in every room, like even at Woodcrest, I was so surprised when Morgan started Spanish. There was this woo, like this shout of like, yes, it was really cool. And I had lunch later that day with people who go to Woodcrest who I would not classify as avid worshipers, and they said it was their most favorite worship experience at Sandals since they've been here for about 5 years.
That's cool.
Very cool. Yeah. I was like, well, you shouldn't wait for a great set to worship, but let's just eat lunch. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Somebody else.
I'll share. I think Anthony Flores did a really great job just from Thursday to Sunday. He was having a lot of issues with pitch and stuff on that last song. So I had to, just be honest with him and tell him, like, if you can't get it, I'm gonna have to sing it. And he's like, no, I'll get it. And
How about Krista having that hard conversation?
Dude, alright.
that was a hard conversation, but
I know.
but yeah, and he did. He got it. I mean, there were still a few moments where it was kind of, but it was like, okay, he's back on. So I'm really celebrating his growth and the hard work he's putting in, because I know we've had a lot of conversations about how hard it is for him to come from the back line to the front, and I honestly think it's just nerves, because he sings mostly on pitch when he's just singing, and then when he gets on the mic, he gets sharp. So anyway, I'm celebrating that.
That's great.
Yeah.
And this past weekend, Christina.
Yeah, he was in the worship leader role with Princess, and he did so great. I was there for the first service, and literally I was just so proud of the team. And I mean, there were a couple little notes, but I think, and I was processing even like his step in leadership, because I know he's been with you a lot. Sometimes when the leader steps away and you have to step in and be the leader, that's really when some people either blossom or they fall apart, because sometimes it can be tricky, like, where do I end, where do you begin, kind of thing. And to see him, like, he owned everything. Was connecting with him throughout the week on his preparation, and yeah, super proud of him. And I would say for me for Easter getting to hit 3 campuses and actually Palm twice, I was just so encouraged with like knowing all of our robo leaders were serving somewhere and seeing a lot of new faces on our team and just the recruitment efforts, the auditions over the last year, just seeing that really pay off. It was my first Easter not leading worship in
13 years for
11
me.
forever. It was weird. But it also was kind of cool just to be like, wow, like look at the new leadership coming in and people stepping into places, and it was just really beautiful. So I love that.
Becca, is there anything you want to share before you have to hop out? Celebrate.
About Easter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't have a drummer on Thursday night for rehearsal. But Daniel and Garrett and the rest of the band led so well with being able to still keep time, which is awesome. I've had rehearsals that without a drummer that weren't even worth it, and that was not the case. So Daniel Marks did a fabulous job keeping the band together when we didn't have that and kind of talking everybody through stuff. Then Sunday morning, I was at Lake Arrowhead. The videos got deleted and the production team was super scrambling.
They're in a Dropbox.
What's David's last name? Production.
No, we
No.
don't know.
Daniel?
Daniel
Are you talking about Daniel?
Daniel.
No, David Connor?
David.
Yeah.
David Conner.
Oh.
David Conner drove all the way up to Lake
There's a
Arrowhead
David.
to help us solve the
I didn't know
problem.
he
And
was up
by
there.
the time
He's not
we
usually.
were ready to go for run through, it was handled. So that was really great. And I think that would be two of the main things. I really just love that the production team was committed to figuring out the issue because it was a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Ian, you're preaching a week early.
Eddie, what about you, Hunter Park?
Oh man. A lot of similar things. Like our team got to enjoy Easter. They weren't having diarrhea the whole weekend. I prepped them early on. I said, hey, we're probably going to be here late Thursday, which is not an expectation. Or
Typically love Eddie's rehearsal.
Not like
Right.
you're
I told
Not for
myself
Eddie's
we were
rehearsal.
going to stick it out because we're going to put the extra work in tonight so that we feel more free on the weekend. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, we were there later than we would have been normally and figured out a bunch of stuff.
Even that was just because we started late. Like, it still was like... Well, it was just didn't feel like, okay, we started late, we have to rush to get done, is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
still, put in the time that was needed. So it's funny, staying late, it was,
Yeah.
9:30.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, no.
Super late. That was just around the last video of it grading too.
Yeah.
But, there was and she did great. We were unsure on Thursday, but
Yes.
I listened to her out in the house a couple times. I'm like, I think she'll be okay.
She sounded really good.
She sounded great. It was her best vocal I think I've ever heard her do. I was there Saturday night.
Yeah. She just has been really working to take more ownership about the things that have been came to her. Wanting to, because for a long time it was just like, oh, I just
Oh,
want
she's
to
right here
be
last
used
night.
more so that I feel important without her knowing that. She's just like, I want to do more because I think
Bye, Becca.
she just felt that sort of gap in her own life.
Yeah.
I think as she's just sort of growing and maturing as a person, she's feeling the need for that to be fulfilled from the stage at church less and less. So being able to see her be more free just as a worshiper
Yeah.
has been really, really sweet. And then I specifically tried to put a team together that had been serving together a lot over the last year, and it was rad. They're just like, man, so cool. Every service somebody had some family, some person, some little girl, some old man, somebody that they had just connected with, that they were just like so jazzed to be
So
worshiping
cool.
together. Yeah, that's really good.
It was great. Yeah, the sound was definitely dialed in for sure.
At Moval, Thursday wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it to be, but we kind of stayed late. But my big win was that the team, I had things to tell them, things that we needed to work on, and they worked on it. And Saturday was still just because of some technical issues, kind of a thing. But Sunday was that day where we were all together, and I feel like rather than get discouraged, everybody banded together more, and worked on the things, and Sunday was just really fun.
Yeah. Emily did a really good job with Solo Eye.
Yeah, she did.
She did a really good job. I was like, who's gonna sing this here? And I was like, and she did a really good job. And Delon
awesome.
did this awesome thing with Good Grace. It wouldn't work everywhere, but it totally is Delon style. And Moreno Valley totally like responded and engaged with it. It was just this.
What do you do?
We took it up a few BPMs, like and to match up, and it was just, huh?
What's a few BPM?
Just a few. It's
To
a few.
match it.
Not
10,
to match
12?
it. Not to match
Okay.
it. We took it up.
Oh wait, that's
a
not
little
a
bit.
Yeah.
We just made it a little bit more upbeat and kind of like had some syncopation and stuff. It was fun.
It was. It worked. The reason
That's
why
awesome.
I'm celebrating that is because it was a creative decision that works really well at your campus. I don't like it wouldn't translate to Woodcrest like it would have, but you know Moreno Valley and they follow you, and so they were like digging it. They were like,
And they love that song.
yeah. So it was cool. And Jason Romero was killer
Yeah.
on your drums. Totally killer. So.
I'm celebrating that week. I really felt like our team dynamic as a band and as production in worship was so strong. Like it felt really just I felt really unified with everybody that week, which made like the whole experience never felt worried. I never felt like I wonder what this person's thinking or if they're gonna do their part or whatever. It just really felt like we could kind of count on each other. Even with the production stuff, that there were so many changes leading into Sunday, but it felt, because of the unity, like so good. And the other highlight for me was the energy in the congregation and in the band. Like there's just like a shift that's starting to happen, and I sensed it even this past weekend because I was interested to see what it would look like compared to Easter weekend, and I'm just really excited for it. Like it's starting to feel different, and in a way where people are like willing to kind of go to new places, and so yeah, I'm excited for that. But that was a big deal for me.
Yes, we're all excited about that for Woodcraft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feel the presence of the Lord in this place. Come on. Here's what's really funny. When I was in college, I went to a crazy Baptist college, and we had this guy who would come in for like chapel, and he never said hardly anything, but he always wanted a big response at the end of his message. So altar calls are like what Baptists do all the time. And so he would sit up there and talk about nothing for 40 minutes, but then he would go, if you love Jesus, you'll get out of your seat and come forward. Because it was like, that's how he was going to get this huge response, like people to come forward. Well, of course, Adam and I were already dating. He's like, we're not going anywhere. This is manipulation. Like he was always, but it was like, if you love Jesus, like at Woodcrest, so he'd be like, Jesus died for your sins, raise your hands. Like you're feeling
it's
a
that.
little forceful, so.
Come on, but not to manipulate it, which is like you can kind of like. And I was there a few weeks ago where Matt Cash was like, and I'm gonna do like he was like,
He gets
I'm
in
going,
their faces a little bit.
he I was like, all right, Matt.
Yeah.
But it fit the setting. It Matt's
And it's
personality.
him.
And
It's
him,
different
totally.
if it's me too.
No, right.
Please do that. Just once. Let's just
He'll
one
literally
time.
like kind of yell at people sometimes. I'm like, well, they know you. It's okay.
Yeah.
Slowly backing away.
Right. But I think what you're saying is it's happening on its own.
Yeah.
Meaning it's just there's a gradual. I can yell at you to do something and you'll do it, or what's it gonna look like when you're doing it because it's what's in your heart to
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
So.
Like, okay, sorry, this isn't Easter, but this past weekend, the scriptures that were a part of Belong to You were fire. And I'm sure this is a normal thing at most campuses where people maybe like hoot and holler and clap. It's not a super normal thing for Woodcrest, but this weekend it just naturally like happened, and it was like that's the kind of shift. Like I didn't say like, aren't we happy about that? Aren't we pumped? Like it's just they were, and they felt like they could show it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Just to let you guys know, in case you lead or co-lead at Lake Arrowhead. We had an explosion with Virgin this past week. I'm not a prophet, but if you would have said, how much money would have put on, I would have been like, not a lot. Garrett and Chris Merrill were up there, and I think that they handled the situation as good as they possibly could. She said she quit. If she changes her mind, she's not allowed to be back on the team at this point. I don't think she has any personal relationship with any of you guys that you'll hear from her. She was not kind in how she treated Garrett, but it did kind of make me start thinking about the fact that we don't really have anything in place should something like this happen across our campuses. But just hear me say, you don't need to put up with anyone berating you or cussing at you or anything like that, okay? So if that happens, I know they're volunteers, you are empowered to say, if they're not already leaving, I'm gonna ask you to leave, and we'll revisit this conversation at a later time. This is not a good time for us to engage in conversation. I don't want you to feel like you have to chase them out and pacify them in their toxic anger. I trust all of your character enough to know that you wouldn't be terrible to someone. So I would say be gentle and be kind, but also be a leader. You have a team to protect. You have camaraderie to look out for, and one toxic person can throw all of that off. I actually think it'll be easier for Garrett to build a team now with Virgie out of the mix, because she created stress for a lot of people. And the truth is, she was creating stress well before Lakeside became Sandals Lake Arrowhead, and no one has ever had a real conversation with her. Which I tried and laid out some groundwork, and she's clearly not adhering to the things that she said she would do, like submitting to the campus worship leader. So just kind of a thing to be on the lookout. I don't see this as being something we'll have to navigate a ton, but I just want you to know, like, Chris Merrill was feeling horrible, but I was like, this isn't a Chris problem. This is, I mean, of all people to be like kind, like, Virgin, let me help you with your patches. It's Chris Merrill, like, he's like the nicest, like, what's he gonna do, you know? And even Garrett, just his low key, like, personality, I would have set her off a lot more probably and not been as nice as they were. So just something to kind of tuck away and think about. The expectation is never for you to just roll over and let someone berate you and be condescending and disrespectful, especially in front of your team. If you ever feel like the situation is leading that way, then call a timeout, step off of the platform, kind of decide, hey, do I need to release you from rehearsal, let's finish, and then follow up with you later. But don't ever feel like you have to stand there in front of everyone and try to make someone feel better when they're clearly not okay. That just does more damage, I think, to the team. So, anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I think that's good.
Great, awesome. So just really quickly, before we wrap up, unless you have any other questions, I want to bring this before everybody for a conversation. So you brought up Brandon in your weekend evaluation. So can you speak to that a little bit, because Brandon does lead at Hunter Park sometimes, but he's not on the Hunter Park roster right now.
Yeah.
So just kind of share your insights about him.
Okay, so context, going into the weekend, my lead male vocal is Andrew Musa, and Sing That As You Find Me was a song we were doing. I wasn't confident that rhythmically that was going to work. And so I asked Eddie what he thought of Brandon. Could he lead? Could he co-lead? So we talked about that. He, like, what about in C? You know, all that kind of stuff. And so I texted Brandon and told him, like, take a look at this. He already knew the song, but he did really well. It was a song that I think was good for his voice, because there weren't moments where he could go crazy other than, and that part just wrecks me, like, and even that, like, was pretty tame, because you mentioned, like, the vibrato kind of like matching that would have been stylistically an odd choice maybe. I don't think he should lead 100 Park at this point, my personal take, but I think he could definitely take on other leads at other campuses, though I would be selective with like what kind of song it would be. And he's willing to be coached, but he doesn't. This was my experience this weekend. He's willing to be coached, but he doesn't seem to understand it sometimes. Like it has to be like repeated a little bit or broken down more than it would be for people that may be more like self-aware. I don't know if I'm saying, I hope this is okay how I'm saying it. So that was like my experience was like, okay, like some things that I coached him in or mentioned were worked on and improved on. Some he thought he worked on, but they weren't really addressed and didn't really change. But it was to the point where it was still like very like proficient and well received at Woodcrest. So yeah, I thought he did good, and he was like so grateful. And it was cool because his mom is Mormon. She came and sat through the entire like service yesterday, so that was really cool. She came and watched baptisms, like, so I thought that was like a cool kind of like side reward of the whole thing. So yeah, he did really well, and like we all know his like energy levels and his engagement is like through the roof, sometimes a little bit. Bring it back in. At one point he like did choreography with another vocalist and like went to like they switched places.
Woodcrest needs a little shake, like they need to be shaken.
You know that shift in worship, that's really what it is.
That's why they started.
I'm always trying to put Brandon or Tim Holland under my dress. I'm like, we're gonna move around.
But it's funny because I know he like plans those things on the side. He's like, hey, so when we at this part, let's cry. Yeah. But he, it was really cool.
Talked about planning and preparation.
Yeah, he did that, you know. So
I'm asking totally honestly, like I'm curious.
Yep.
Some of the things that like the vibrato thing, I've heard that many a time. We've said those words to him.
Yes.
Okay, I figured
very
probably.
clearly,
Like
yeah.
I figured. I just wasn't sure what the conversations
Yeah.
in this realm have looked like. I have personal like conversations where giving feedback is that kind of a. There's just this very slow, like kind of tiptoeing in because whatever reason the directness of this is what it is has to be given all these examples and all this back, support and all this.
And there's a lot
evidence.
of post-discussion
and
debrief about it.
Effective like argument about that's not always. It's this like pendulum swing of because this isn't what I always do. It can't be what I just did right now in this moment. And that's the hard part about. So good job for having the conversation. And I figured we probably have said very clearly within worship context, this is the thing. But just to be sure we have.
Well, leading over here, so did you have a conversation with Mark going into the weekend? Okay, so I just want to give like a conversation.
You see, it's fine.
What was
if you're leading in Hunter Park and Mark is on your team, he is not clear to just lead
for takeoff.
Like he's not your co-lead
Not clear for takeoff.
male.
Oh. Okay.
No. This was this is the lane. Eddie's gonna clarify the lane. Listen, for Mark, for Brandon, and any others, there's this is what conversations I've had. Well, like Bernard, right. You're not Bernard. It's the same reason I'm not trying to do Jill Scott riffs because I'm not like this is my lane. So Eddie and I probably are the two worship leaders besides Bernard that do riffs like on occasion. But again, they're right packaged in the lane in which we run. And sometimes if I might bring that, like I catch that spirit and bring it back into because Bernard is Bernard. And what Bernard could do and did was not distracting and didn't take people away from the melody of the song. That's a unique giftedness. Eddie is very, very careful with placement. It's never detracting from the melody. He's either got another melody vocal in there or it's kind of after the line. Those are things that I don't think Mark and Brandon have dialed in at all. And so that's why identifying their lane and how to run in it as a worship leader, you're leading people, that has to be the conversation that we have and not be afraid to have. So what did that look like for you? Because
thank the Lord for Tim Carson, right?
Oh,
Right?
Because I was able
he
to
gave
bring
you
some
a,
of
Yes.
those things,
he gave you a,
right? Some
It would have
tools.
been nice for
Yes,
Mark
you
Urban
did.
to meet Tim Carson.
Oh,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
workshop that we
Yeah.
I
had.
was able to sort of pull from that and be like, hey man, here's some things that we're all working on together. So for Mark specifically, the two things are just reining it back, really being choosy about what he's doing and when he's doing it. The other thing is just to fill out some of that bottom tongue because it gets really tight and pinched. So it's like we're trying to almost over sing a little bit to bring some of that warmth and presence back in.
Good
Be
job,
thinking
Eddie.
about that. I know, right?
Nice.
That mindfulness.
I know, right?
I was like, all right,
Seriously.
from Mark, I was like, just really be thinking about that. Think about really bringing in some of that depth, some of that warmth, because as it starts to get higher in the register, it gets really pinched. So it's very specific, very clear. And the other thing, it's like we have a real high level of scrutiny right here at Hunter Park. So
Yes.
we've all been going under it, bro. Like you've just got to dial it back. Like just play it really safe. Really, really sing the song and lead the song well. And after he went through a couple of passes of it, I said, that is your baseline right there. Like just stay there. Don't go above that. Don't go past that. Don't get crazier than that. Like that was really well done. That is what you want to strive for. So he actually had a idea of, okay, I just did that. That's a good space. And he veered out of the lanes a little bit, but for the most part, I think he did well.
Yeah.
So he did lead a song?
Yeah, he did
Oh,
belong to.
okay. Okay.
Again, Mark can lead at other campuses, but he should still be coached. It's not just like if he's at Marina Valley, don't just say, well, Mark's gonna expect a song, so I'm gonna. That's why we had the vocal workshop and the vocal boot camp made available to our whole team, and he would have benefited greatly from that instruction and those things. So it is okay, and it is actually preferred that we coach our vocalists, especially our lead vocals. I would also say to you guys that when you're in vocal rehearsal, if your harmonies are not dialed in at vocal rehearsal, cancel them. Melody is fine. And the other part of that is harmonies are only translated well when they're done well. If harmonies are not done well, they are distraction from the melody and from engagement. So if they're not nailed and solid, just pull them back. And it's as simple as this. We're all in the vocal huddle, we're singing, and I'm listening to Chris's harmony, and as we're going, you just go, hey, double the melody. It's that simple. We don't have to go, Krista, come into my office, what I need. We don't make it into a thing.
Yes.
If she's like, oh, I was singing it, yeah, I think for that song right there. In fact, if you listen to Hillsong's newest album, People, which is like, they're doing that double melody all the time. And what you constantly hear when they do that is you hear a strong female and you hear a strong male, and that's what our congregation is. So it's more beneficial to have the melody doubled than to have harmonies layered when 85 to 90% of people are not singing harmonies anyway. Especially when your vocal teams are small. Harmonies are like a bonus if you've got like a Carly Camden who's gonna nail it every time. Carly's learned how to match her harmonies with Eddie down to like she knows when he's gonna pick up, when he's gonna drop off, when he's like it's very dialed in. But if you just have a person who can hear the harmony, but they don't know where you're going and when, like just pull it, just go back to a double because that's what's easier and translates better across the room. So does that make sense? Cool, good coaching.
In vocal rehearsals, I've had to push our vocalists a lot. Just like, hey, you need to sing like you are on stage right now in this room, because they'll sort of like with their phone and they're kind of singing and they're like listening and they're trying to like make sure that they're in the parts. I'll play the minimal amount. Like we will sing most of it a cappella, just so that I'm like, you need to make sure you know what you're doing and you're confident in it, and that we all can hear each other and work on blending. Right? It's crazy. But really starting to push them a little bit more in that, and they're like,
Sitting up straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing too is even with like the small vocal teams, because I've talked to a couple of our campus worship leaders where maybe we've had 2 or 3, and so they've like just ditched vocal rehearsal and kind of done it with the band. I still think the value of even if it's just 2 people, making sure you're having that vocal rehearsal so that, because when you go into band rehearsal, you're thinking through so many other things, you're listening for other things. So I think just really encouraging you guys to keep pushing through with vocal rehearsals, even if it's a super small team.
Yeah.
The smaller teams are the more important teams to
Yeah.
have everything in. So just
Yeah,
don't
the larger
forget.
teams cover stuff up.
Totally.
But when it's just 2 of you or 3 of you, all your sins are revealed to the world. Like they can all, she didn't, ooh.
And it goes instrumentally too.
Yeah,
it's not easier. It's actually harder. Like, and there's more scrutiny on what you're doing. You have more freedom, but because of that, you have more responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, to use it well.
Yeah.
Alyssa Knight, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
She was at East Valley. I heard her last weekend at Easter and also this weekend lead. And she's got a really solid vocal, great presence. I don't know if she's just at East Valley, but she's at one of your campuses.
That's her home campus.
Is it? Okay. Good harmonies.
She's awesome.
She's awesome. She's like
Pablo was
Pablo
excited.
said it
Pablo was
it's
blessed.
like
Just snatch that up.
the secret 18 is like we're here.
Spencer's
So
there, like.
It's like what?
Yeah, it's the house band he refers
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You deserve to do a billion
one of our
services
own.
then. Enjoy your house band. Play some more services with them.
I would have circled back with you really quickly, because Jason Ransom was your band leader for Easter, and this was after several months off. I was so thrilled to see Jason, and just, I love Jason, so I just wanted to get your feedback on how that went. Is he back into the mix for good? Is Palm his primary campus? Like,
No, I just asked. 'Cause it was Easter and I thought I would. So,
Pick up.
and like it was more of like his blockout dates ended, and I saw that and saw that he wasn't scheduled, and it was kind of like a hey, pretty please,
snatch.
like please, so I can. But he did good. His band leading was definitely like rusty, and I think we've just come so far in our band leading too since last time he's been led. So, and things of just like band leaders are in rehearsal, and so like, and I knew that, so we shared a lot of things, and there was a lot of there's a lot to do, so we just shared it.
Yeah.
But he did good with like calling some things out when he could. I think he just needs some time to just get like shake it out a little bit and feel comfortable again. He said it was good to be back and enjoyed playing at Palm. So.
Yeah. Cool.
And everyone was like super stoked
Yeah.
to see him. So.
Yeah. Sounds like she comes like, come here. Cool.
Chris Carrillo stepped in at San Bernardino, and I got feedback from Anthony that he did a really good job band leading. So, just as we're putting names together for that band leader training, do you want to share about that really fast? Can you?
Yeah, we're planning on having a band leader training May 19th in the afternoon after services. And that's to take our more passive band leaders that have been doing.
Like all
Sorry,
my
Eddie.
band.
Yeah,
Yeah, most of the band leaders that had been there before, because band leader was undefined and it was kind of like rolling kind of into it and not like, here's the start and here's what it is. And so now that we have all of that clarified and like nailed down,
So
it's new people, but then also the guys that have been doing it, like Jason, Jeremy, like any of those guys, to be like, this is the new normal. So when you're agreeing to this, you're agreeing to it in this way.
Yeah.
And Daniel Martz is gonna shadow Matt for this first training. This is kind of his robo project then for the next one moving forward.
This is the first part of his. He's gonna facilitate it and help him make all the details happen, and then we'll go through all of the content together, and then we'll review afterwards with the goal of when we host another one in the fall that he'll be sharing the load and doing at least half of the teaching for it.
So good. Great work. Love it.
Yes, like a varsity jacket.
Yeah.
You just earn his letter.
Yeah.
I want to
Actually,
earn a letter.
really, I'm all about that.
I was like, dang, dude. I was more about
That's what I'm
varsity
saying,
sweater.
let's,
The
like,
sweater always
replace
looked
the
like
Daniel
cool.
Oh, yeah,
breathe
yeah.
a little
Just
bit.
You
Put
button
something,
to
put
the
some
top.
patches.
He would wear that too,
Buttoning
dude.
it, not unbuttoning.
No,
Just
no.
keeping it there.
More like the
Yeah,
military
he
one though, with
brought
the
his own
straps like
fan
on the
this
top.
week, bro. No joke. He brought a box fan. I'm
And
like,
he
"You're
already
not
wearing
putting that on
board
the
shorts
riser."
only.
Wait, who brought a box?
Ken.
Guys, I don't know if I shared this, and I hope this will have to keep our video tight. But I went to the loft for our team gathering, to like when we had that in March. If you've never seen Ken worship,
Oh man, it's so great.
oh my gosh, it was. I just kept watching the video. Like he moves, he jumps from side to side. Like he has a whole like pew that's just him. It's the most expressive. Which like when you talk to Ken, you're like,
You never guessed it.
And he's not like concerned with
No.
how the quality of what is coming out of his mouth at all, like other than it's just like from like the depths.
It
of,
was
like,
just
goodness. I
awesome
love it.
to watch him. He was in the back, so he just had this whole row, and he went to town. He was loving it.
That's why he sweats
Yes.
so much again. That's why when he's showing up with like sleeves and like short shorts, I'm like, it's fine. You need to cool off so that you don't pass out.
It's true.
It's totally okay.
He's still really modest because this covers.
Yeah, well, he's got a sweater underneath.
Yeah.
All of the clothes.
There's never any neckline.
It's never
showing.
ever uncovered.
It's
Yeah.
just-
It's
very covered.
That was our
yeah.
discussions this week. He
Get-
yells a lot too from the.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were being attacked.
He just goes,
Yeah! Like literally.
During rehearsal or something?
no, during
No,
service.
during the service.
Like he's like.
Did you say what was
Yeah.
he like
Screaming
stood
and
up?
stuff.
Yeah, he
Like,
stands up and he's like, "Cat mushrooms." He's like, standing up. He didn't say mushrooms. But
Like he
he's,
was excited or
yeah, like he's telling the church to get off
He's like,
their feet.
Oh,
Or
nice.
get up on their
That's
feet.
awesome.
That's a new thing.
Worshiping.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
Let's go,
No, for-
Ken.
So we got that back
Maybe he
drum
doesn't need a
camera.
microphone.
That's, you know, and so
Yeah.
it cuts to that, and it's just him standing like, and he's got both sticks. It's-
Oh my gosh.
That's
that
so
was-
cool.
yeah.
Awesome.
I'm gonna tell Sean to do that.
Translate as well.
Okay.
I like the holding
I
like
wasn't
here
serious.
To just
That's right.
But just a smile.
I'm gonna
No,
tell
no
Jeremy
smile.
to do it.
No, he's the
Jeremy
game
is
man.
the-
He smiles
Up and
like
down,
when he
like-
lowers his brow, and then he's
And-
like,
Yeah.
Because he's got the head. Well, it's the head tilt.
Sean.
The head
Yeah.
tilt where you only have that, and then you have a smile.
But then if you look at him, he goes like this.
yeah.
Okay.
Chewing gum.
and then
Eyebrow.
just
I know that was a good thing,
Sean
but
had
it didn't
difference
feel like
for
a
long
good
time.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so real
It's
though.
so funny how some of our
He knows
drummers,
the secret.
they're just here,
I love
Right.
our drummers.
Yeah.
and they go up there, and they, like even Spencer's, I was
Yeah.
like,
Right.
No, like,
Actually, dude, these are.
Spencer, you almost died. Yeah, I'm good. Okay.
Yeah, right?
Do you need some water or something? I'll get later.
Lastly, really quickly, just so you guys know, I sent an email out to all of the campus pastors and executives about Rogo leaders at their campuses. And basically what the email said is, here's some things for you to remember. They're new. What were my 4 points? they're new.
Such a good email. They're new. Encouragement matters.
Your encouragement matters. Our process
trust the
works.
process.
I
She
just,
said, nothing
the
to
process
prove,
works. I said,
nothing.
no, look who's come through Rogo School Worship and we've hired. Look at their growth. We feel confident in our process that they're and gaining reps is what is like most important. But the
And
second one was
they're being coached. I think
yeah,
it's the coaching.
they're being
piece.
coached and evaluated, but don't expect them to have the same amount of energy or confidence that your campus worship leader does because you're just not there yet. And so that went out this week, just so as you have Rogo leaders at your campuses. I told them who they are. I asked for them to encourage them when they see them, that they're volunteers and they're spending hours prepping for the campus worship experience. And so I just want that to be on their radar. In terms of, you know, we can be quick to evaluate, and we should evaluate. We need to be quick to celebrate. We need to be really quick to celebrate. People growing, people stepping out, people taking chances, people failing and getting back up and doing it again. We just need to be people that celebrate and not just evaluate so that we don't deflate. But I'll save that talk for another day. So anyway, thank you guys very much.
I'm sorry, just really quick for the band leading thing. Clayton was band leader at San Bernardino for the first time, Easter. He did pretty good. Ryan Olson, like, I just observed that, because he's been my band leader before, but he will freeze up when you give him the assignment to band lead. But then when he's not the band leader, he has all these ideas. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, so, I mean, he would be an interesting one to coach as a band leader because
I love that guy.
yeah, he just kept texting me all these ideas, and I'm like, let you know these things, you know. So just an observation I thought was interesting.
I don't make the decisions, but here's a decision I think we should make.
I think he would be a good band leader. I think it just whatever the
Confidence.
confidence
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Totally.
We should have a line in planning center with the not band leader and see how he does.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not the band leader. Okay, well, here's my ideas.
Not,
then.
but yeah.
Cool.
You're the band.
Starts running rehearsal.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, anyway.
You can make him the assistant band leader.
Yeah, there you go.
Assistant to the
Miss
regional
Rolfe.
band leader.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Good work.
Excellent.
Let's make sure to get a message to Pablo, Steve, Cash,
Garrett.
Garrett.
Will they? Is this on? This whole being video, right?
I'll send it to him.
Only
Yeah.
part of it.
Just part of that message coming.
Only part of it.
Yeah.